Today is June 15th. Welcome to Native Calgarian. Oki, Nagana go, Mekoche Chestakomaki. My name is Red Thunder Woman. My married English name is Michelle Robinson, and I use she and her pronouns. Native Calgarian is being recorded on the lands of the Niitsitapi, which is the Blackfoot Confederacy. The Blackfoot south of the opposed US-Canadian border are the Blackfeet. North of the border are the Siksika, Gunai, and Bogani of the Confederacy. These lands are Treaty 7, signed September 22nd, 1877, with signatures that include the Blackfoot Confederacy, the Wesley, Chiniki, Bearspaw Nations of the Stoney Nations, and the Dene from Tsuut'ina. I acknowledge all First Nation, Métis, Inuit status, and non-status across Turtle Island as the keepers of these lands. All non-Indigenous are treaty partners with the government signing on your behalf. I honor the Blackfoot as the elders and members have been so kind to me on my Red Road journey. Elder Red Crane taught me how to pronounce my name, and I'll just announce he actually just got his doctorate in the last couple of days, so he's now Dr. Elder. I was born here in Calgary, or in Blackfoot, Mohkinstsis, as Michelle Elliott, an English name which has afforded me privilege in an English colonial world. My mother is Northern Slavey Dene or Satu Dene, but my Indian Act and Post status card by the Canadian government says Yellowknives Dene. My father is so Canadian. I am a daughter of the Mayflower and a daughter of the American Revolution while having an Indian Act and Post status card. My Dene lineage roots me in the land of the Hare people, also called the Great Bear Lake people in Treaty 11. I'm a native to Turtle Island, and my Dene Nation is a visitor to this area of Clincho Tine Indahe in Satu Dene, meaning many horse town, named after the Calgary Stampede. Land acknowledgements are critical for creating a safer space for Indigenous, as well as honoring the host as the guest and acknowledging your role as a treaty partner. My humblest apologies to the Blackfoot elders and language keepers as I try to learn proper pronunciation. Any mistakes or misinterpretations will be on me. I encourage questions so that misunderstandings can be cleared up as soon as possible. I do not speak on behalf of all Indigenous. I just share what I know as I walk down my red road. My Patreon account is Native Calgarian, where you can pledge and support. Thank you to the previous donors for already showing your support. If you value listening or watching and can afford to give, thank you. To those who cannot afford to give, I'd love to hear from you at nativeyyc@gmail.com, where you can send in your comments or your questions. I also have a YouTube channel where you can go and subscribe. Go to nativecalgarian.com for the latest podcasts and pin posts on social media. So I was just playing around on Twitter and I came across Jim. Jim, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm James Rafferty. I'm Jim from Edmonton, Alberta.
Yeah, it's nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you too.
Yeah, so I seen you on Twitter and you had just a couple of followers and I'm like, what the heck? And I looked and you had written a book and you were looking for somebody to talk about your book. And right away I put Eagle Speaker Publishing right away because that I know that they've done that work in the past and they're here in Calgary. But I just wanted to talk to you about, going on Twitter, making a book, your decision to do all of that, and just introduce a little bit about what was the impetus that made you want to have a book.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, I actually emailed those people already that you recommended. So hopefully I hear back from them. Well, it just came about, like, I've been creative for all my life, but I always wanted to write a book, and I would always be that guy who's like, when I finish my book, but I'd never finish my book. So eventually, like 3 months ago, I was like, or no, actually longer, 4 or 5 months ago, I was like, oh, I'm going to start this book because I just had a lot on my mind and I just kind of wanted to get it all out there.
Yes, no kidding. So I had a look at your book and I'm like, oh my God, this guy's so native. There's so many levels here, like literally that you were born at the Charles Camsell Hospital in Edmonton. So that says to me, you were likely a scooped kid and mama was in a really bad situation to have been at that hospital. Holy.
Yeah, I don't know the exact full story of it. So that's why I'm still pretty bitter at my birth mom. But I would love to know the full story, but she doesn't talk to me, so I can't really get to the bottom of it.
Yeah, so I can tell you a little bit about my Red Road, finding out later and as opposed to at the time. And so I harbored a lot of anger at my family as well. And once I started the journey of understanding some of the policies that they were under, especially at that time. You say here that you were born in 1978. I was born in 1977. And so we're so close in age. So a lot of similar policies that were being imposed on my mom was being imposed on your mom as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would imagine, for her to have been at that Charles Camsell Hospital, might indicate a lot of things. It might indicate that she was in an Indian hospital on purpose by whatever authority, and I don't know her story, so I'll let you tell
Yeah.
your story and what you're comfortable telling.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, where do you want me to start? Just the
Well,
beginning?
yeah, well, right away you have great photos within everything that you say, and that's wonderful.
Yeah, I tried to like capture it as good as possible, like each year that I documented. So I don't know. I was born February 6th, 1978, Charles Camsell Hospital. From there, I was what happened?
I just decided to show everybody these cute pictures. That's what happened.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I got caught
Don't
off
be.
guard there.
Don't
I can,
be.
okay. Now where was I? Um, oh man. Okay, this is where I take that drink because I totally thrown off.
Yep, that's totally fine.
Okay. Anyways, I was born there, and then my mother, from what I know, like I can't like clarify everything, so that's what's kind of frustrating because there's some stories where she abandoned me, and there's other stories where she actually had me taken away from her. And so it's I could have researched that, but I wanted to just deal with myself and my anger towards that. So I think I want to write another book based on what I might learn if I actually like we I've tried so hard with my birth mother. Like I actually went and lived with her, and she wouldn't even talk to me then. So I kind of just gave up after that because I want to know where I came from or what was the story, and she won't even tell me. So I get it secondhand, and so I wrote basically based from what I know. Like I wish I could like have that firsthand account and like what happened exactly in the hospital, but from what I heard, I was abandoned. Like on my adoption certificate, it says baby as my name. Um, so that's why I came up with baby no name because when I went to the foster home, that's what was my name. And then when my parents adopted me and it was on my adoption records as baby, so I was like, oh, it's pretty upset that she didn't even name there that say that I have a name. Like I just found out from my cousin that I had a name like the other day because I sent him my book. He's world famous actor Nathaniel Arcand, and yeah, so he said my name's Bradley, but I have to look into it. So that'd probably be the second book if I
Yeah,
do a
that's
second
fair.
one.
Well, that is totally fair. Yeah, so at that time, what I know is that Indian residential schools were still happening, and
Hmm.
a lot of our families were forced to go to them, so mine included.
Hmm.
And as a result, like my grandmother's first child was actually a rape baby, and
Okay.
yeah, and my mother was actually born from rape, and that was well, I would argue today it's still very common for indigenous women to be raped. And so that's why I have no time for folks that are like, oh, you're only half breed, oh, you're not full native. And it's like, well, you don't know my story, you don't know my
Yeah.
mom's story, you don't know my grandma's story, and I know that we have no rights. I'm in 2021, and when I had my daughter in 2007, they still wanted to apprehend her because the 60 scoop is a policy that's in existence today. A lot of the messages I'm supposed to be moving, and instead I'm doing the whole, issue of talking to people whose kids are being apprehended for no other reason than racism.
Yeah.
These are the issues we still face today because we're native and because government policy is the way it is, and you're not meant to know, and neither is anybody else. So
Hmm.
it's really problematic because you feel really hurt by your mom not even naming you, but we don't know the circumstances,
Yeah.
right? And
But
I
yeah.
don't want to assume the best, but I also know the realities of that time. And I know
Hmm.
that I was lucky enough to not be a rape baby. And that's like first for our generations.
Yeah.
I'm the first generation to be able to raise my own child. And I'm sure that has everything to do with the fact that my husband is a non-status native, or a non-status man. If
Hmm.
he was native, I'm sure our child would have been apprehended and we would not have had the right to even raise her. So,
Yeah.
like this is where we're starting at. So I understand your anger because none of this was explained to me until I was way older. And it wasn't even my own family that explained it to me. It was my research that I had done into what I knew Indian residential schools to be as an atrocity,
Hmm.
and I knew that there were graves around every single school, but people wrote it off because of like a spokesperson who was white, and it was really an awful experience to have people always undermine the reality and the truth. That's actually
Yeah.
part of the reason why I started the podcast, because you're not I've seen records of people like people I know. I watched them get pregnant, have baby, get apprehended, and what they wrote in their file is grossly wrong. And that's the type of legacy, of course, as a child. How are you supposed to know? And
Yeah.
that's the evilness of the 60 scoop policy that continues today. Some people call it the millennium scoop now as well, and you're directly impacted by that. And people don't understand, the loss of identity, the anger that you,
Mm, yes.
all of that, right? So
Yeah.
it's a lot of that as well. And anyway, I just I definitely would want to help you in your red road journey as well, and just to help you try to uncover. And that book number 2 will be amazing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the revision of the first book, or however it looks, it'll be amazing. So as you go down this, and I just wanted to kind of show people pictures as we go. So if you're not on my YouTube, if you're just hearing this, there's this cute picture of a photo of us, obviously in our, like, 5 to 7 age range, and it just says foster kid on it. Jim, do you want to go into that at all?
Oh, yeah, sure. That's my adopted brother Mark and my adopted brother Sean. Mark was from the same hospital as I was, but he was born in 1971, and so he was a bit older than I was. And Sean was born in 1970. I don't know where Sean came from because he was a white kid. So that one I have no idea about.
Yeah, that's cute though. That it's a cute picture. It looks like you guys are like a dying to eat birthday cake. So
Yeah,
it's super cute.
yeah, he was a yeah. That's my big brother Mark.
Yeah, so I've moved down to another photo here where it's like you're inside, I don't know, a Cutlass or something. The door's open. You guys are hanging out in your amazing 80s outfits with like total butterfly collars. I'm loving
Yeah.
it. Love because this reminds me of me and my childhood because I was born so close to you. So
Mhm.
I love these pictures so much.
Yeah, like when I got them from my mother, they was just brought back so many memories, like stuff I didn't think I remembered, and I still remember just based on like how like good it was at some points, I guess, and how bad it was at some during some of it. But
Yeah. I've skimmed over a lot of your story already, and it really, I caught a lot of different places that you've been in. And in this last picture that we're looking at, it says right here, Coleman, Alberta. So, how many places had you lived up to this moment here in Coleman, Alberta?
Up to that point, well, I went from the hospital to a foster home to Coleman. Yeah. So basically, my first home was Coleman, Alberta. And then from there, we moved on to Vancouver Island. And then, yeah, we moved lots, like based on what my dad would get jobs at. So,
Do you remember what your dad did?
yeah, he was a warehouse manager for Ecol Electric.
Mm.
I don't know if I can I say businesses on here? Is that fine?
Yeah, I'm totally
Oh,
fine
okay.
with that. Yeah, especially if they treat you good. If they
Yeah.
treat you bad, then I might bleep it out.
Okay.
Yeah, but and
Yeah.
only because I don't want to have you have a lawsuit because we did a stupid podcast, right? Like that's not okay.
Yeah.
I want you to be safe to say what you'd like to say. So Penhold, Alberta. So I have ties there. So I grew up in Sylvan Lake, went from
Hmm.
grade 3 until I graduated. So
Okay.
yeah, that whole central Alberta area, of course, it just seemed like we were all rivals with each other, but we always had relations in some way. So when I was older, in my teens, I became a Sea Cadet. And at that time, before the major cuts that happened under Chrétien, we had, sports weekends and all sorts of like fun weekends, camp weekends that we would have in Penhold, Alberta. So and this was before human rights. Human rights came into effect in 92, I think. I want to say
Oh,
92.
really?
Yeah. But we mocked it at that time. So prior to that, we were having fun in Penhold, let's put it that way. And they had the air shows and such. So yeah, so when I see that, that's what I think of is air shows and playing around on the base.
Oh, yeah. I never really got to go to the base when we lived there.
Mm, there you
Just was
go.
all, yeah, it just was always in Penhold.
Yeah. What are some of your favorite memories there?
Of Penhold?
Yeah.
I don't really have that many good memories. I have bad memories, and that was basically the when the Challenger blew up when the teacher made us watch. Not didn't make us, but she let us watch it while it was going on live, and that was kind of like shocking. And as a child, like I still can remember it clearly because it was so like out of nowhere.
Yeah, no, I remember that moment. I was sitting in a classroom in Sylvan Lake, same thing. But like all of us were watching this all excited, and then we just like stopped it, cut it, and we moved on as if nothing just happened and we didn't just witness that blow up.
Yeah, it was a tough time in some of like for my adopted parents. Yeah, we struggled because we came from BC like with nothing, and then my dad got that job, and then it was only him working, and he had to provide for us all, and it was a struggle for them, but they got through it.
Yeah, I know it's hard though. I remember the 80s as in a really negative way too, especially earlier. We had just moved to Fort McMurray and then the big oil crash happened actually. So weirdly
Oh, okay.
enough, we had just moved up there and my dad was on unemployment right away because of that oil crash. And yeah, and then we moved to Sylvan Lake in I want to say 93 or 94. That was when we had
Oh,
moved there. Yeah.
okay. This is another picture of me and my brother Mark in Red Deer. Red Deer was a great little city. I enjoyed Red Deer.
Yeah.
Although yeah, I think that's where I experienced my first bit of racism, though.
Oh, yeah, I'm not surprised to hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not surprised one tiny bit. Do you want to talk about that? What do you
Um,
remember?
I just remember kids like on the playground being like, "Oh, you're just an Indian. You're a dirty Indian," and I was kind of like at the time in my head, I was like, I'm not an Indian. My parents are white, because like they didn't like I knew I was adopted, but I didn't really know anything at all about my culture.
Yep.
So in my head, I was white. Like
I'm with you.
they never came to me and were like, "You're a native, so act like it." So yeah, so that's how I learned racism. I didn't understand it, and I just not even till later on in life I didn't really realize they were being racist.
Hmm.
So, but it was kind of like different, but it always stood out because I was like, yeah, I thought I was a white kid, but I guess not.
Yeah, and I relate to that because my white father was raising me when we had moved from Calgary up to Fort McMurray. It was only with my dad and my stepmom, and my dad and my stepmom are both white. So it was really weird to me when people would be like, but you're Native, right? And I'm gonna be like, well, my mom is Native. My real mother is, that's how I always referred to her, was my real mother. And then anyway, she, in, I guess it was about 85 was when I got my status, 86.
Yeah.
And then I would say, yeah, I'm Native. I'm half Native, my mom. And people would be like, you have a status card. I'm like, yeah, well, you're Native. And it's like, okay. But I didn't know what that meant. Like, I was so
Yeah.
disconnected. I had no concept. So I really feel you on the identity issue, where people are imposing their racism on you, that you're a
Hmm.
Native, but you don't know what that even means.
Yeah. So I was oblivious to whatever they were talking about.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, oh, okay, let's keep playing then.
Yeah, like, what else do you do? It's like, okay, whatever. Yes, and the Bart Simpson mania happened in grade
Oh,
5 and 6.
you just passed the 20% thing though. That was like the most traumatic thing ever in my life.
Why?
And, well, I'll tell you the story.
Sure.
We were in Red Deer. I was in grade 4. My grades were not good. I was going to St. Elizabeth Seton School, and one day because I was getting D's and I had to bring home a test to be signed by my birth or adoptive father. I shouldn't say birth father. And so I brought it home and I didn't want to show him, but eventually saw it, and he slapped me across the face because I got 20% on the test. And it kind of since then it's kind of always been in my head, and I've never ever forgot about it. And it kind of ruined our relationship. And later on in life, when I kind of still held on to it and was still bitter, because I felt like, why would you slap me when I'm like 8 or 9? I don't even know exactly what age, but what is that going to do to somebody who looks up to this person as their hero and just gets slapped for no reason, basically? Like, my kids have not done good in school, and I wouldn't even think about slapping them. So I don't understand why it was different for me.
Yeah.
So, and
Were you
I don't, sorry.
were you the
And
only one who got hit like that, or?
that's what I was just going to actually say is I don't know at all if my brothers got hit. So it kind of always made me feel like the black sheep of the family, because he never seemed to accept me. And it goes on for the rest of my book of him not accepting me.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that, my friend. I know how awful that feels, that's for sure. I don't
Yeah.
know how I just exited out of there, but I did. So that's no fun. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. But I'm glad that you talk about it, because I do this program called Mending Broken Hearts, and it's basically a timeline of when traumas happen to us and we learn
Mhm.
how to talk about them. So, like, you're literally doing that in your book here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's actually really smart. And as you unpack it, of course, it just expands. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
It
So,
was yeah, that was I think that was one of the main reasons why I actually wanted to write this, because I just had to get that off my chest and let people know that, you know, like, as much as I didn't suffer in the way a lot of people have, did suffer in my own way. And we should all, realize that everybody has suffered, and I don't know, let them deal with it in their own way, I guess.
yeah. Well, it's important that parents understand the trauma that they imposed on us. But it's also, like, for me, a journey of understanding why things were the way they were at the time that they were. And that's hard, especially now as parents. I can't imagine using certain like things as a reason to hurt my child. And I worry about her all the time. And it's just impossible for me to understand as well. Like, when you
Yeah.
talked about your kids not doing good in school and hitting them as the solution, like, that's tough. So, anyway, grade 5 and 6, we got a picture of you, and obviously it was Simpsons mania at the time.
Yeah. It was
Remember all those duck shirts we used to all have too? Like, everything was ducking great.
No, I don't. I
Don't
remember
remember
like
that phase? Oh,
Chip and Pepper,
I
and
remember Chip and Pepper. I had a great black and white shirt.
my parents were too cheap to buy me Chip and Pepper.
I understand. I think it was a gift to me from one of my cool aunties. So
It's always good to have cool aunties.
I had really cool aunts and uncles that I wasn't a jerk to and totally rejected because they were native. And only now that I'm older do I understand like how cool they were. And I
Hmm.
mean, I knew at the time a lot of my aunts and uncles were cool anyway, but I just knew because like I remember the racism of that time. And I remember feeling so ashamed of being native. Like it was very clear from the messages we were getting in school, social media, or not social media, the mainstream media, that
Yeah.
it was not cool to be native at that time in central Alberta. So I remember. Did you want to talk about grade 4 and 5 at all? Or
Or
five
five
and
and
six?
six.
Yeah.
They weren't really that memorable. It was like around 1990, so it was like a new decade, and yeah, it was nothing really went on at that school.
Yeah. Hey.
Yeah,
And then you
like it
came to
was.
H.J. Cody, where I
Yes.
graduated from high school and I went from grade 7 to grade 12.
Oh,
So
that's good. Yeah,
yeah,
I love Sylvan Lake. Like, yeah, there's lots of the water slide there. I had like the season pass for the summer, so that's pretty cool.
me too. Did you know that was like an internationally award-winning water slide? And you and I got to actually live it. Like just no particular reason. It's just there in the middle of freaking nowhere, Alberta. And we got to
Yeah.
have season passes and play on the stupid water slide all summer long. It was funny. I was talking to my husband about that, and he is like, could you imagine? Because in those days, like my parents would just let me go, and they knew if I wasn't on the slides, I was in off the pier. Like I was in one
Hmm.
or the other, and that was totally fine. But I could never imagine doing that with my daughter today.
Yeah, that's actually a funny thing about daughters and or the difference between daughters and boys, because I have a 12-year-old son and I let him do so much compared to what I let my daughter do. So yeah, it's kind of what do you call that? Uh, Having a blank out moment. Sorry, I should take a drink. Not gender equality. What would it be?
Yeah, I was gonna call it sexist, but you
Yeah,
know.
that's it. It's very sexist. I couldn't think of that. Like to think that I actually treat her like that, or I treated her like that. Like, you don't think you do it, but you always want to protect that daughter. Like that's the main thing. Like in sons, you're like, get up, wash it off. You're okay. Daughters, you'd be like, oh my God, are you all right? Let's go to the hospital.
Yeah, it's just I don't know what it's like to have a son. My birthing experience here was so awful that I was too traumatized to have another child actually. So I wanted to have more kids, but
Hmm.
we had planned to have more kids, but I could only I ended up only having the one, and it was a daughter. So and like what just living this life with her. I mean we're in Calgary, and unlike I've never felt as unsafe as I do here. It's the cops are everywhere. I live in a neighborhood where a young man, his name was Colton Crowshoe, was murdered, and the police, the way they treated his family, I mean, it is just not safe to be walking these streets. I've done so many vigils of missing and murdered Indigenous women.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not safe here. So it's impossible. I put my daughter in my martial arts as soon as one would accept her, and
Hmm.
she only quit it at the pandemic, her martial arts. So we'll see now that things are starting to open up a bit, how what sports and activities she chooses to go into. But she's about to turn 14, so the learner's license is the highest priority at this time.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. So obviously, water slides were a good memory of Sylvan Lake. And if you were in HJ Cody, we all know the same teachers and everything then. So,
Mr. Roland was the principal, or what? I think I don't know if he was
vice
vice principal or
principal. Yeah.
yeah.
Swaby was the principal, and then
Yeah.
Roland was the vice.
I always liked Mr. Roland.
Everyone liked
Not a lot.
Mr. Roland.
Not a lot of people didn't like that in my class, but he was really nice to me. So,
Yeah, he was nice to me too.
and my mom was a substitute there, so she was always
Really?
chumming
So
around with the teachers.
Mrs. Rafferty, a sub. Okay, I'll think about
Yeah.
that. I'm going to talk to my husband. So my husband grew up in Sylvan Lake too, and
Oh,
we were
okay.
high school sweethearts. So we actually have very similar memories of things.
Hmm.
So, but different because, like, we grew up. We were in grade 4 and 5 split class together at Mr. Everett's at CP Blakely. You know, like that. We go that far back.
Holy, that's a long time.
I know nobody knows each other as long as we've known each other. It's so weird. So anyway, it's really great that, like, when I seen some of these names like Rick Malcolm, I'm like, do I know that guy? Do I know that guy? So I've been trying to think if I knew him, but and even looking at him, I was like, God, I'm sure I recognize him, but I can't remember. So I mean,
Yeah.
we've only met like if for an hour, so I'm sure I'll remember here later.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, so it's really cool to see these pictures and to share this with you because we were together, we just didn't know each other.
That's true.
Yeah,
Could have been at the water slide at the same time.
totally. You might have been that little kid that was like, jerk, and you're like, oh my god, that girl looked at me. I'm just kidding.
Probably.
You face no racism at all. That's good.
Yeah, not in Sylvan Lake,
Yeah,
which is surprising, but because
yeah.
it's so close to that one town, Benelto, and it seemed that was really racist town. I don't know. That's just my opinion.
No,
I shouldn't say that.
Dr. Dina Henshaw, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so she grew up in Sylvan Lake and she graduated it would have been 93 with my husband's grade. That was his grade. And
Okay.
yeah, so all the Benalto kids, like when they came to HJ Cody, it was like, and then there was a Christian school, a private Christian school that all of the kids would be forced to come to HJ Cody eventually. So it was always interesting how they stayed in their little cliques and then
Hmm.
and then they were forced to deal with the rest of us. There was only like, I don't know, 30 of us per class that ended up graduating, so they were forced to get to know us.
Yeah.
But yeah, those Benalto kids. Go ahead.
We're at Leduc.
We're at Leduc. So this is a
Yes.
cute picture. You
Yeah,
live in
that's at the ferries with my friend Richard.
So the Leduc has a ferry?
Oh no, that's just I put the picture there because it's the only picture I could find of me and Richard, and we were like best friends.
Cool.
So yeah, and that's what he's like the first kid I like got to know in Leduc. But Leduc was truly a horrible experience at first.
Oh,
Yeah, lots of bad memories there.
well, I'm sad to hear that. People will have to read the book to find out more. So yeah, that's good. And then I seen the word wrestling and I'm like, oh my God, he was totally into wrestling too.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
wrestling's great.
yeah, well, that's all we had to live for was like Saturday night's main event or then the Stampede Wrestling and it was still WWF at that time, right?
Hmm.
So we had those. So and then here's an amazing shot of the red van that would have been commonplace at that time.
Yeah, actually, I'd love to have a red van like that right now to go traveling in. That'd be fun.
Right? They're so
Yeah,
expensive though.
they are. Even the old ones, they're like crazy prices right now.
Yep, absolutely. So I love this picture of grade 9 with the van. And then we have high school here with cute puppy,
Yeah, that's DJ.
DJ, DJ the
Yeah.
pup. Well, we love DJ. And so my husband, he was also an LA Raiders fan at the time too.
I think everybody was, especially if you like rap music.
Well, that would have been when NWA first came out, right? So everybody
Yeah,
was wearing Los Angeles everything because they were so cool.
yeah,
Yeah. I didn't understand the Compton, LA thing until I was older, sadly. I wasn't, I just didn't understand the geography of that area. So, but yeah, everybody had LA Raiders everything, didn't they?
yeah.
And that would have been the same time the Chicago Black or Chicago Bulls were really popular. So I see.
And like starter jackets and whatnot.
Yeah, exactly. So that kind of started too. So it looks like you're a wrestler here.
Oh well, I was trained to become a wrestler.
Awesome. That's taking
Yeah,
the Stampede Wrestling to the next level, friend. Holy.
yeah, but there's a story to that.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait for
Yeah,
people to read your book. And that's kind of the whole point, right? Is to try to encourage people to read your book. And right
Yeah.
now, how would people access your book?
Right now I'm trying through like Facebook and Facebook Marketplace. I've just started on Twitter, um, Instagram, Snapchat, just whatever I can. Like all free social medias, trying to use as much as possible.
Right on. Yeah, well, I will love to promote your book in any way I can. So, are you going to charge people for it?
Well, there's a page for 60 scoopers, and I don't charge them, but I'm trying to sell it for like everywhere else.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's good. How much are
so
you
lots.
selling it for?
The PDF copy is what's mainly for sale right now. That is $12.15 because I wanted to pay kind of tribute to the 215, the original 215, and the what is it? The published copy, or it's not published yet, but self-published copy
Yeah,
was like $20 right now.
nice,
So yeah,
nice. Well, that's great. And then you even have more in it, hey? About
yeah, I got
Natasha.
that's my ex-wife. Yep.
Yeah. And then we have some more pics coming up. Harmony was born, and that changed her life completely. And I love these types of pictures. These are my favorite.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was just completely like captured like out of like pure accidental because I was just taking pictures of us, and she like did that, and it was like captured, and it's one of my favorite pictures of her.
It's like a perfect picture. It's one of my favorite father-daughter type pictures that I've seen in a long time. So I'm so glad that you shared that with us. And single Jim,
Single Jim.
you're not single anymore though, right?
No,
No. Okay.
this is actually a newer picture. I should have used like one from when I was younger, but I like this picture because it had Oilers in it. So
Right on. Well, I'm happy for you, man. And then pro wrestling, like that's
yeah,
so amazing. This is my
yeah,
biggest shame and regret.
that's true.
I'm sorry. I'll let other people read your story so that they can hear about what it is. And you took a break. Your adopted dad has been diagnosed with dementia,
Yes, he
uh,
has.
so that's tough.
Yeah, it kind of really altered my view of him 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I've like completely moved on from being bitter at him. And it
Mm,
was all because I can't think of watching him suffer and then still be mad at him because he's gonna go through terrible time.
yeah. There's
And
a movie from Anthony Hopkins that's just coming out that I've been interested in seeing, and it's basically trying to depict the worldview of somebody living with that, and uh, and that matters to us because my husband's grandma's going through that right now, and she's in a
okay.
home. Yeah, so it's hard because during stupid COVID, she's deteriorated so much.
Yeah, that's terrible. And like you can't even go there and see her probably and like help her out with memories and whatnot.
Well, and then we were trying to find out what like home he's in or she's in so that we knew to watch the numbers. But sometimes that's not what families want to tell. So we never
Yeah.
got to know. And so yeah, there's a lot of like it's hard when your family's not 100% interested in divulging that type of information. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So we were always afraid that there's going to be a COVID outbreak wherever she was. So,
Yeah. That's what like where most of them have been bad outbreaks, and it's kind of scary.
right. And, if you have dementia, like, how do you even have a conversation about a freaking virus? And when, like the last report we got was that she was, you know, thinking she was a little girl waiting for her mom and dad to come out of her. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah. So that's where she's at in her dementia. So,
Oh,
yeah. Anyway.
yeah. I'm not looking forward to that for him, but oh,
I
it's
know
terrible.
that's part of reality and we don't talk about it, right? And
Yeah.
interestingly enough, I'll give a shout out. I heard it's Elder Abuse Awareness Week, because, it's easy to manipulate people when they're vulnerable. And because we as humans are such jerks. Now it's
Yeah.
a thing. So anyway, but this is a nice shot. It looks like you're an Oilers family.
No, they just put on the clothes. Only me.
Only you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Everybody else likes different teams like Montreal and Toronto and
Ah, yes.
yes. And this is Samantha with her dad. This was actually taken, what was it, 3 or 4 days, no, 5 days before he passed away.
Oh,
Um, we rushed up. Here, I'm just gonna give it a backstory. We rushed up there because they said he had less than 24 hours to live.
wow.
Yeah, and so we went up there, and he perked up for 3 days that Samantha was there,
Mm.
and then this was the shot of him, and like he came back to life, and it was probably one of the most amazing things I've ever seen in my like whole life because I got to see like what pure love is, and that's pure love of his daughter.
Aw,
And yeah, and it just always sticks with me because you know I got to watch it, and you know it's her dad, and
that's
yeah,
good.
it was pretty
That's
sad.
yeah,
But
no, it's the worst. I hate death. But I that's part of my healing journey is trying to figure out how to navigate it better. So, Tyson, he's pretty cute. Holy.
yeah, that's my 12-year-old.
Yeah, hey.
Yeah.
Aw. So Samantha is about to turn 14, so our kids are so close in age too. Can't believe it. And here's
Oh,
Harmony. Holy, she's so pretty.
yeah. She's gonna be a heartbreaker when she starts dating,
Going to be? Holy. I think you're
or
in
she is
trouble.
now.
Yeah, she is now, my friend. I'm sure
She's
she's
up in Grand Prairie with her mother right now, so
yeah.
it's different because I don't get to be around her all the time. Like
Yeah.
because she was with me from grade 5 till 11,
Yeah.
and then she wanted to go up to be with her mother, and I'm not there to watch her, blossom more. So
Yeah,
it's kind of different.
I bet. And it looks like is this your mushum?
No, this is Harmony's mushroom,
Okay.
and it was a big loss for her and her birth mom. Oh, I
Hmm.
guess, yeah,
All everybody, hey.
yeah.
Yeah.
This is my brother Mark. He passed away
Oh.
just over a year ago.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, he was living in Long Beach, California, doing pipeline work, and he got what is it called, assaulted, like,
No.
yeah, like in December, and then he had a brain bleed that he didn't know about, and then in May he just dropped dead.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm so sorry.
yeah, I know, it's pretty terrible, and he's got a beautiful 15-year-old daughter too, and
Mhm.
she's just without her dad, so that kind of sucks.
Yeah. So you get to be uncle, hey?
Yeah, well, she
Yeah.
lives in Vegas, so I don't get to see her.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah,
Aw. Well,
and
it's
this is my birth father.
Rodney McDonald.
Yeah, I don't know too much about him, but I don't know. I didn't slander him in the book, so that's pretty good.
I have a friend named John McDonald, and he's just put out a book of poetry. I wonder if you two are related.
I don't
He's
know. I'm
pretty
related to
active.
lots of McDonald's in Edmonton. I
Yeah,
haven't
that's
met
fair.
them really though.
Yeah, that's fair. And you got lots of animals, both in your
Yeah,
book and in real life, hey?
yeah,
Right on. Yeah, this is a really good read. I can't wait to read it and know more about you and read your story. And I'm so you were saying that you're involved with the 60 Scoop group now, hey?
yeah.
That's good. So do a lot of you get to kind of talk about the issues of like loss of identity and reclaiming who you are with limited to no resources thanks to government policy?
Um, Not a lot. Like, oh,
Okay,
sorry.
baby.
There's a lot of people leave their opinions on there and like to leave like messages of like encouragement to people, but lots of people don't open up. So, which I understand because it's traumatic and lots of post-traumatic stress syndrome from everything, and
Yeah.
yeah, so it's like I wrote this so like maybe somebody will read it and be like, I want to tell my story.
Yeah.
And I would love to read somebody's story, like, and just get to know who they are and what they went through. And like, mine is not on the level as some, but I just thought I felt like sharing it, and like, I don't know, in hopes somebody would like be like, oh, I need to tell mine.
Yeah. And then that's the whole point of having you on the podcast too, is because I know somebody who's listening is going to really relate to everything you've said. And if they're watching us on the YouTube, they'll relate to some of the things that they've witnessed from the book. And my hope is that my viewers or my listeners will pick up your book and have that conversation, because there's unfortunately way too many folks in our situation that are reclaiming who they are because it was purposefully done so we wouldn't know who we were.
Yeah.
I agree. I've read the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. I have a book club here in Calgary, and we go through it like the volumes and such. So it's been really eye-opening about how child welfare was even formed. It was formed because of Indian Residential School, and it's a pipeline. I have the inquiry report, and it's a pipeline for missing and murdered Indigenous women too. So it's all interconnected. It's insidious, and I wish you the best on your reclaiming journey, and hope that you can keep me apprised and let me know when you have some really great news, and so we can update the folks that are listening and go from there.
Well, yeah, thank you for having me on. It's been awesome, and I will keep you informed because I'm on Twitter, or I just started Twitter, so I'm just going to start going from there.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Constantly promoting this thing. It's annoying.
Hey, that's what I want. I want you to be I annoy myself, frankly. I'm not gonna lie. I can't stand listening to myself, but I'm grateful that I have people that are willing to listen to me. And if I can talk to folks like yourself, like honestly, when I seen some of the places that you had been and where you were born, I'm like, oh my God, this is like my native brother, and I don't even know this man. So I was super excited to really just talk to you and get to know you, because I can't wait to read your book. And I'm that's what I love to do. I love to read, and I know that not too many people love to read, so I don't know what's wrong with me that I can't wait to read your book, but I am that person. And I think
that's perfectly fine.
Yeah, well, and if I can get it printed out, I'll probably put it with some of the TRC has the one volume that's really specific about child welfare forming. And it's not just you. I know so many people who are 60 scoop kids and trying to reclaim who they are, and I obviously they need to tell their stories their way. And my hope is that your book and being on the podcast will help inspire others, but also a lot of allies are listening, and they really don't understand the devastation of the red flags that happen at the hospital that indicate somebody's native, and that they just steal the child, and the long-term impacts of child apprehension. So that's why I also want you on here. It's not just to have Indigenous who will relate to what you're going through, but also to have Canadians see the damage these policies do. And that's why it's important to have Indigenous-led government policy, and not settler-led.
Yeah.
So
true.
Is there anything else that you'd like to add today?
Well, I'm on Twitter, James Rafferty. My book's Baby No Name, 60 Scoop memoir. Feel free to add me. I add everybody.
Right on. Right on. And actually, one of my favorite people is Adam Northpagan, and he is actually a 60 Scoop. He's part of an organization that does like trauma healing work and such. So I'll I don't know what it's called, but I'll send you a screenshot of his card, and because I know he'll want to connect with you. And hopefully I can get him on my podcast when he's not busy, but he's so busy because he's from Pagani. So they have the coal mine thing happening right now. His niece Marilyn is running for Ward 7 here in Calgary. So he's busy. So I'm hoping we can get him on the show, but he's a good man, and he opened up. It was a cold day on February 14th, which is the day we honor a lot of missing and murdered Indigenous women. And of course, the North Peigan family has been impacted by poor government policy leading to death
Hmm.
in their own family. So it was really empowering to see an Indigenous woman who's running for city council. She'll be the first Blackfoot ever to run for city council. So it was a really, impactful moment. And anyway, Adam opened up with the opening prayer. So, these are folks that are going through the same reclaiming of their identity and bringing that back. And anyway, we're all
Yeah,
interconnected, and that I'm
it's
really
good
honored.
though.
Yeah, really
Like,
honored to have you on my show.
oh, thank you. It
Yeah.
was really fantastic meeting you, and just kind of just organically came together, which was really cool.
And I'm a big believer, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. If it isn't, it isn't. So
Yeah,
that's why when it happened, I'm like, well, it's meant to be for a reason. So I'm looking forward to it, and I hope that we can promote your book. And I've already retweeted you in your book because usually on Native Twitter, what we do is we're like, oh, a new Native, we immediately follow and bring him into our world. So
yeah,
yeah, don't hesitate to reach out if you like see weirdness or anything like that. You don't know what's happening, let me know, because
okay.
sometimes we have like a lot of folks leading people in different directions, because the problem with trauma, unresolved trauma, is that it's so easy to mislead people, and I see that all the time. And it sucks because it creates what's called lateral violence and internalized
Hmm.
racism. So you and I are unpacking internalized racism from being in a really unsafe place like central Alberta, and
Yeah,
experiencing that racism. But that's our journey, I guess. And I know I'm like a living lotto ticket. When I found out what happened to not just my mother but my grandmother, I
hmm,
felt very lucky to even be alive, frankly. So
yeah. So that's a
yeah.
good part, hey?
Yeah, and get to have a beautiful journey with my daughter and my husband. So, and I want that for you, and I want all Indigenous people to thrive. It's the best revenge that we could possibly have,
Hmm.
in for government policies and meant to eliminate us.
Yeah,
Yeah. So, I'm gonna do my exit here, and again, I invite you to, chime in if there's anything that you want to ask about, or if you want to add. And actually, you know what? Even just having this conversation, I think I need to add the 60 scoop information, because I don't have it. I have the Hope for Wellness helpline and the MMIW inquiry helpline, but I need to add more resources for 60 scoopers, I think. So it's been really great having you on the show, so that I see my blindness, that I should be adding that. Anyway, I'm really proud this
awesome.
podcast has given solutions and included cultural safety training, cultural first aid in almost every one of them, to create a safer space for Indigenous people of color, those with disabilities, and LGBTQ2 plus to speak. I want to say thank you to authors Cheryl Ward, Chelsea Branch, and Alicia Fridkin of heretohelp.bc.ca, of what is Indigenous cultural safety and why I should care about it. So I encourage folks who don't understand to start there. Their work on those cultural action tools that I've said over 100 times in my podcast support Indigenous work. So have that as part of your reconciliation work and settler understanding. I'm just lucky enough to highlight these resources and repeat it here. Internalized racism or lateral violence is another form of violence Indigenous and marginalized people experience by the structure of racism imposed on these lands. Racialequitytools.org, What is Internalized Racism by Donna Bevins, unpacks it slightly there. And Do's and Don'ts for Bystander Intervention for American Friends Service Committee has some really good ideas if you see, say, somebody with a hijab being harassed on the C train, which is exactly what just happened in Calgary. And I've been giving these resources, and yet here we are. If you see or experience racism here in Alberta, you can report it to Act to End Racism, or text at 587-506-3838. Indigenous have been talking about our issues, sharing our traumas in reports, commissions, and public hearings, just so it can be regularly disregarded. No more. Honor our words, honor the treaties, listen to politicians and their policies and platforms. If they don't recognize the marginalized in their budget with Gender Equity Plus, if they are cutting violence prevention programs, services, Indigenous education, uterus health choices, gay straight alliances, lack of human rights for migrants, immigrants, folks with disabilities, know that your vote to that party directly negatively impacts marginalized people. Demand that they implement the Truth and Reconciliation Commission calls to action and the recommendations of the Royal Commission of Aboriginal Peoples report. The multiple reports about child welfare reform and violence prevention programs, and now 231 calls to justice from the National Inquiry on Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women, Girls, and Two-Spirit. Denying those reports is a form of abuse called gaslighting. Our people are experiencing extreme racism in the educational, justice, and health institutions, with multiple reports that say the same things. Demand change from election platforms and politicians. If they don't understand colonialism, racism, privilege, and sexism, they have zero business running. It should be understood by all parties and local politicians, community organizations, sports clubs, etc. A great article I said out loud in episode 62 is Truth Before Truth, How Non-Indigenous Canadians Become Allies. And I said it in the hopes that people would understand. And now we're in a post-215 world, and I'm still angry and gaslit because we've been talking about this in previous episodes as well. And for some reason, when we tell the stats that 1 out of 24 kids didn't come back from Indian residential school and 1 out of 25 came back from the war, like there's not a correlation of understanding there are literally cemeteries beside every one of these schools. Anyway, if you're experiencing emotional distress after anything we talk about today and want to talk, call the First Nation and Inuit Hope for Wellness helpline at 1-855-242-3310. It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can also text at hopeforwellness.ca. If more related to missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit, you can call 844-413-6649. It is also toll-free 24/7 crisis line. For non-Indigenous, there are distress center lines in your area and usually a functioning 211, but you can also call 833-456-4566. And again, if you experience racism in Alberta, you can text 587-506-3838. If you go over to the Trevor Project, there's tons of resources for trans, LGBTQ2 plus youth. I also like to include the Kids Help Phone because I personally used that when I was a kid, 1-800-668-6868, and lifevoice.ca has crisis supports for LGBTQ2 plus. Violence is my everyday reality. Every Indigenous generation has faced it. That's why I started the podcast, to speak freely without interruption, tone police, leadership shaming, without gaslighting questions, as many people don't want to hear Indigenous opinion, sure want to tell us theirs by people who know nothing about Indigenous colonialism, the constant surveillance of Indigenous people, our protests, our vigils, and our rights. Microaggressions, people dealing with internalized racism who become gatekeepers and survive off the status quo, or people who are in their trauma and stop people from being able to do the work and deplete personal resources. Internal and external racism is an everyday reality for Indigenous people. And that's why I started the podcast, as a way to be heard. I want to say thank you to my ancestors, my granny and my mom, of what strength looks like through your example. I want to thank my dad for teaching me to be strong and blunt. My stepmom for showing me what a proud culture is through her Austrian family and roots, and stepping up and teaching me to be a proud Calgarian. It is through her I am a second generation proud Calgarian. Thank you to my husband Darcy for producing and editing the show. On top of being my husband, childhood friend, father of our child, he has supported me down my journey of the Red Road and has witnessed decades of racism and sexism. And to our child, who we are blessed to learn from daily, I'm honored you chose us. You give me daily accountability to be a better and stronger person. My hope is that my daughter and my family will be proud in the future of us trying to discuss these present day issues. My Patreon account is Native Calgarian, where you can pledge and support. Thank you to my previous donors for showing your support. If you value listening or watching and can afford to give, thank you. To those who cannot afford to give, I'd love to hear from you at nativeyyc@gmail.com, where you can send in your comments or questions. I also have a YouTube channel where you can go and subscribe. Go to nativecalgarian.com for the latest podcasts and pin posts. And I want to end by giving side eye to the Calgary Rabbits. You're lucky I'm not Tradish. My beautiful cousin would respond, or you'd be in my dish. Thanks for listening.